This is a video presentation of Chapter 3, Section 7 in the 7th grade textbook entitled Adding and Subtracting Fractions. So let's go ahead and jump right into the examples here. In number 1, we are supposed to add or subtract. Obviously, this is an addition problem, so we're going to add an A here. And we're supposed to write each answer in simplest form. Now, what's nice about this question is we already have common denominators. When you add or subtract, you are absolutely required to have those common denominators. And remember, the denominator is the bottom number in the fraction. Well, since we already have that, we don't have to worry about it, so we can just go ahead and add in example A here. So I'm going to look at my numerators. My numerators here are 5 and 1. I'm going to combine those with addition, and that's going to yield 6 as a result. And whatever the denominator is in the question is how it goes down to the answer. So as you can see in the middle step here, it stays 8, and in my final answer here, it stays 8. So I end up with 6 over 8. Now, at this point, then, they apply what they're asking for in the second part of the directions here, which is the simplest form part. They're reducing that fraction, which we've already learned how to do. They're taking out the greatest common factor. Well, the greatest common factor of 6 and 8 is 2. You can check that any way you want, but let's go ahead and just look at it from the perspective of listing the factors here. We can do that, no problem. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. The factors of 8 are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. The biggest number that's in both lists is 2, so we chop 2 out of both the numerator and denominator. So we take and chop each of these by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 6/8 reduces to 3/4. 5/8 plus 1/8 makes 3/4. Here's 9/11 minus 4/11. Again, nice question because we have common denominators here. So we can go ahead and just solve. I'm going to subtract the numerators. I'm going to do 9 minus 4, just like it says, which is what they're showing you here in the second line. 9 minus 4 is 5. And again, once you have a common denominator, that carries all the way through to the answer. So since my common denominator is 11, it goes down to the answer 11. I can take nothing out of 5 and 11, so my final answer is 5/11. 9/11 minus 4/11 is 5/11. Okay, so now we go from questions where we already had a common denominator, which is really nice because it was really easy, to questions where we don't have a common denominator, which means we're going to have to do some work here. So we're adding 5/6 and 7/8. So where you want to start here is with that common denominator, as I said. You can find the common denominator any way you want, but they decided to basically list multiples to do that. 6 and 8 are my denominators here in this question, so I'm going to list multiples of 6 and 8 until I find a match. So the 6 list goes 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. The 8 list goes 8, 16, 24, and as you can see, I can stop because we have a match, 24. That means 24 is the least common multiple of 6 and 8, or the least common denominator here. So as you can see, as we look down here a little bit to this question, we've got a common denominator listed at 24. All right, so now let's talk about changing 5, 6, and 7/8 so we can add them together as the question says here. To change 6 into 24, you'd have to multiply by 4, which is what they're showing you here on the second line. Because they had to multiply the denominator by 4, they're going to do the same thing to the numerator. So they're going to multiply the top by 4 there. 5 times 4 is 20. So we end up with 20 24s. To change 8 into 24, you have to multiply by 3. So I'm going to have to do the exact same thing to the numerator. So I'm going to take 7 and multiply it by 3, which is what they're showing you right here, and I get 21 24s. Now that I have a common denominator, which is what they're showing me here in the third line, now I can go ahead and add these guys together. Again, I'm going to add the numerators, 20 plus 21, which is 41, and the denominator is going to stay the same at 24. 41 24s. Now this answer is acceptable. If you wanted to leave it like that, you could. Here they're showing you changing it into a mixed number. Remember, we've also already seen how to do that this year. You would divide 41 divided by 24, which is 1 point something. That's where the 1 comes from, the whole number part of the answer. The top then would be the remainder. Well, 1 times 24 is 24. How many more would I need to get to 41? 17. That's your remainder. And remember, the denominator stays the same. That's why 24 is still here. Either one of these answers is perfectly acceptable. Here's 2/3 minus 3/4. Again, we're going to have to start off with a common denominator here. So, common denominator here can be obtained through listing multiples. 3 list is going to go 3, 6, 9, 12. The 4 list is going to go 4, 8, 12, and the match happens to be at 12, as you can see. Since they match at 12, that's going to be the least common denominator here, meaning the bottom numbers here are both going to change into 12. Okay, to change 3 into 12, that means you would have multiplied by 4, as they're showing you right here. So I'm going to multiply the top by 4 as well, and 2 times 4 is 8. That's how I have 8 twelfths. To change 4 into 12, we're multiplying by 3, so I'm going to multiply the top by 3 as well, and 3 times 3 is 9. So I've got 9 twelfths. So I've got 8 twelfths minus 9 twelfths to be solved here. Well, 8 minus 9 in the numerators, which is what I'm going to have to do to solve, that's going to give me -1. So as you can see, I wrote -1 down here in the answer. And remember, the denominators stay the same. So because 12 is the denominator, 12 is also the denominator in my answer. And we end up with -1/12. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. It's a story problem, but again, we're not going to panic about that. It's in the section about adding and subtracting fractions, so chances are they want us to add or subtract some fractions in the story problem. So let's keep that in mind here. In one Earth year, Jupiter completes about 1/12 of its orbit around the Sun, while Mars completes about half of its orbit. Of how much more of its orbit does Mars complete than Jupiter? All right, so they're asking us here to find the difference of the two. Well, the difference would imply subtracting. All right, and they're asking for the difference of Mars to Jupiter. So that's the way we're going to subtract them, Mars minus Jupiter. Half minus 1/12, which is what you can see they've set up here on the first line. Well, again, we're going to have to start off here and do common denominator. Common denominator hits at 12 here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 for 2. And 12 list starts at 12, so the match is at 12. That means this second fraction, we won't actually have to touch that second fraction because it already has a denominator of 12. The only one we're going to have to change is the first one, a half. Well, to change that fraction, look at the denominator, 2. How would I make that go to 12? Well, I'd have to multiply by 6, which is what you see right here. Because I'm multiplying the bottom by 6, I'm going to have to multiply the top by 6 as well, which is what you can see right here. So I do that, and I end up with 6 twelfths. So now the problem I'm solving is 6 twelfths minus 1/12. 6 minus 1 is 5. And again, the denominator would stay the same, so 12. So this is 5 twelfths. Half minus 1/12 is 5 twelfths. Now let's put it in context of the question. The question was, how much more of its orbit does Mars complete than Jupiter? Mars completes 5 twelfths more of its orbit than Jupiter does going around the Sun. Okay, so let's finish this up with the check it out questions. Number 1, we're back to common denominators. Luckily for us, less work. 5 6 plus 1 6. Well, again, we're going to add the numerators. I'm just doing what it says, so I'm doing 5 plus 1 there. 5 plus 1 is going to go ahead and make 6, and the denominator stays the same, 6. So we have 6 sixths here. All right, you can reduce that because 6 divided by 6 is a whole 1. So 6 sixths or 1 would be your answer here. 5 6 plus 1 6 makes 6 sixths or 1. Now we're subtracting in number 2, but we have different denominators here, so we're going to have to start off with a common denominator. 2/5 minus a half. So again, we're going to find the least common multiple of the denominators, which is the least common denominator. So denominators here being 5 and 2, multiples of 5 would go 5, 10, 15, 20. Multiples of 2 would go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And as you can see, the match hits here at 10. So the least common denominator here, the least common multiple of the denominators, 5 and 2, is 10. So I'm going to change both of my denominators into 10. Well, to change 5 into 10, you're going to have to multiply by 2. So I multiply the top by 2 as well, and 2 times 2 is 4. To change 2 into 10, we're going to multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply the top by 5 as well here. 1 times 5 is 5. So the problem I'm solving is 4/10 minus 5/10. Well, let's go ahead and solve it. Remember, the denominator stays the same, so 10 gets taken right into the answer. Where the subtraction comes into play is the numerator. So I'm going to have to do 4 minus 5 here, just like it says. 4 minus 5 is -1, and I write -1/10 because that's my final answer. 2/5 minus 1/2 is -1/10.